The Old School Rewind Podcast. The podcast about breakdance music.
So why is it got to be so damn tough?
Hip-hop and old school. The roots of electronic music. The Roland 808 and Freestyle. This is the Old School Rewind with Randy Bubba Black on the Podcaster Online Network, Facebook.com. Search Old School Rewind and subscribe now at iTunes with all links at oldschoolrewind.com.
This week on The Rewind, the king of Miami bass, Amos Larkins Jr. joins us.
You say 1 for the trouble, 2 for the time. Come on, y'all, let's...
Hello there again. It's Aaron, Bubba Black, live from the Podcaster Online Studios here on the Podcast Farm, Central California, paying tribute to the golden age of dance and hip-hop. I do this show specifically for folks interested in the dance rhythm movement of hip-hop. That's where I started in broadcast radio. In 1984, I was a mobile DJ, breakdance kid. Got on the radio in 1986. By 89, I was going to country music. The dance and rhythm movement was over. We talk a lot about the Roland 808 drum machine, being it was such a big part of the hip-hop dance sound of that time. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and now on the iHeartRadio app also. We update show notes bi-weekly, publish every Friday. Subscribe, share, rate, review, relax, and enjoy the story of Miami bass through the eyes and half-baked memories of producer Amos Larkins. We're lucky he can recall any of it. That's all I'm saying. Welcome, Amos Larkin Jr. to the show. Let's do the Old School Rewind podcast. Come on.
All aboard!
You might not know who Amos Larkins is by his name, but you'll know a lot of the music he's done.
Yeah, man. What's happening, people? It's Amos.
Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy. And just to let you know, I had like 20 or 30 different pseudonyms back then, different names. That's why you don't know who I am. I never had a nickname. That caught on because I would change my name so much, you know. Back in the days, I was like 16, 17 years old. And when I started doing that bass stuff, I was like 19 years old.
And that's mid-'80s?
That's mid-'80s. Yeah, that's like a little under mid-'80s. I was really young when I started out at TK. See, my old man, my father was a manager out at TK Records with Henry Stone and all those people, and Steve Alamo. I don't know if those names sound familiar to you. But, you know, and my father, you know, he used to go, hey, you know, bring your bass. I was studied under. Actually, when I was a kid, I studied under. I'm like a jazz musician. I was classically trained, and what happened was, I got accepted at the U of M under like grants, and they had these programs out there, and I was able to study. I met this guy. He was a teacher. His name is Yanko Pastorius.
My name is John Francis Anthony Pastorius III.
I have heard of him.
He was a teacher out there. I studied under him, pretty much studied under him, you know what I mean? And I used to do like workshops out there with people like Chick Corea. Stanley Clark. They used to have like Alphonse Mouzon. I don't know if these names, these are jazz names, you know what I mean? I studied jazz music when I was a kid, you know what I mean? And classical. and I was an upright bassist. And at first I was pretty much a electric bass and an upright bass. And then I got into like electric bass and fusion. They used to call it fusion rock, which was jazz mixed with rock. And what happened was my father, he would say, hey, come out to the studio, bring your bass to the studio. You know what I'm saying? And I would bring my bass out there. This was TK. TK was before Sunnyview. And I would bring my bass out there. And that's how I got started in the studio and stuff like that. I was a studio bassist.
And Henry Stone ran that. Was he running? Where was Criteria in all this? Okay,
Criteria. Henry, like this is way before I even got started. But Henry Stone, he started out actually with Mac Emmerman, which was Criteria Records, right?
Right.
Criteria Recording Studio, not records, but recording studio.
Correct.
And then he started doing his thing. Later on, Henry got his TK record thing. He was a distributor at first, First, Henry started out at Mac Emmerman recording his first music, his first stuff, and then he started out the years, I'm not sure exactly how, but then TK came in after Criteria. You know what I mean? That kind of.
Did your pop work for Criteria, or did your dad work for TK?
No, my mother recorded at Criteria, where my mother and father met people like Willie Clark and Betty Wright and Henry Stone, and then. After that, after Henry started doing his TK records, that's when my father started going out there. You know what I'm saying? He started like managing like a couple of acts and stuff like that. Which the biggest one he managed, my father managed, was a guy named David Hudson. He did a song called Honey Honey. Years after that, I don't know what year was that shit. But years after that, I started going out there with my bass and that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
And you're about 16 at this point.
I was about 16, 17 years old. I was really young, man. I might have been like 14. I started going to U of M like when I was like 15. You know what I'm saying? And I studied music theory, but I mainly I was like a bassist. I studied bass out there. I was able to train with like people like that. And then, so it must have been about 16. It must have been about 16, something like that. And I became a studio musician out at TK Records.
And what's the first thing you were studioed on that got put into circulation?
I don't remember. All I know, I was playing bass. I was playing bass for this guy for different artists. I was playing bass for like Betty Wright.
A clean-up woman is a woman who gets all the love we girls leave behind.
Benny Lattimore.
Yourself down, girl, and talk to me, and tell me what's on your mind. Don't you keep on telling me everything's okay.
Tell me about Clarence Reed, a guy that recorded there at TK. And I think I had an album of Blowfly.
got the master class, and I'm here to suck some soul to your ass. Smoking weed, feeling fine, when suddenly I see a blue light behind. Call it dickhead, check out my crack. I think I got a bear on my back. He's on my ass, and that's no joke, but I'm gonna leave that blue light motherfucker in the smoke.
Clarence Reed was a great writer, man. That guy was fucking kick ass, man. I came in with my dad, okay? I mean, I didn't do nothing first. He just told me to bring my bass, keep it in the car. While my father was doing his business in the back, I'd be hanging out in the lobby, in the studio, right, in the recording lobby, and I wasn't allowed back there, all right? And then I met Clarence Reed. Clarence Reed was cool with everybody. When you see young dudes, he just like, because I don't know what happened. He must have figured, hey, man, you know, if this guy's hanging around here, maybe he might be something one day, right? So that's how I met Clarence Reed. Clarence Reed walked up to me with this fucking middle finger that was about 6 inches long, right? And then his fingernail would make it another goddamn fucking 3 inches, right? And this guy walks up to me, scares the hell out of me. He walks up to me and he says something stupid, like something, I don't know what the fuck. And every time he would see me, he would become friends. And he started inviting me in his office, which was around the corner from the vice president's office, which was Steve Alamo, right? Mm-hmm. And this lady, Joyce Strauss, she was really nice to me, and I'd be hanging out. And then one thing led to another, and then I was able to go into, he would bring me in the studio, you know what I'm saying, while he was doing sessions. And he was like one of the top producers, if not the top producer. And I'd be hanging out, and he'd say, hey, what do you do? I said, I play bass, and that's how I started getting on sessions, you know what I mean? And Paulette Reeves. Oh yeah, Beaver, Little Beaver. You know, but I would be, because I hung out with Clarence Reed, I was able to do these sessions. That's how I started. Mm-hmm. Then Willie Clark came in the picture and that kind of thing. But during those, that's when I started learning how to engineer too, recording engineer. That's what happened. Mm-hmm. I started out as bass, and then I started hanging out with Ann Holloway and became a recording engineer. But that is a whole different story altogether. I met this guy named Michael Cleats, and he was a writer, right? And him and I became friends because we were the youngest people hanging around there. This is TK Record. I don't know why he figured this. Now listen, I wasn't no genius and I had no brains and nothing like that, but this guy figured for some reason, he figured I was like a mathematical genius. He said, those are his words. Hey man, you look like a mathematical genius. You could probably figure out how to become a recording engineer. I'm like, well man, how am I going to learn? He said, hey, listen man, this is what we'll do. We'll hang out in Clarence Reed's office when everybody leaves after 5 o'clock. I know a way to get in the studio, and then you can practice, right? He said, so what happened was we would fall asleep in Clarence's office, and then when everybody left, he would sneak out. He says, hold on, wait here. I say, it's quiet as hell. I'm scared as fuck the first time we did this shit, right? and this guy said, I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm going to prison hanging around this fucked up guy. Who is this guy, right? So he would sneak, then he'd come back and say, okay, let's go. So we go to Steve Alamo's office, and then we had the screwdriver. We break in Steve Alamo's office, and he would say, hey, you get up and you go through here. I said, what? Go through where? He says, the drop ceiling. He says, you go through there and you just go right over this hill, right over this wall, and open up the other ceiling and drop down. Those are the tapes. You walk in there and you go to the studio and you open the door for me. You know, the first time, this was Studio A, the biggest studio they had. We break in, right? I don't know shit. The first night, it took me all night to figure out how to turn the equipment on, right? And he would be in there playing the piano while I'm in there. I said, oh, fuck, I'm like in heaven, bro, right? I'm like, fuck, man, look at this shit. So I start turning on the shit. So then we got used to it. Nobody would ever come in for like a long time, 3 or 4 months. Nobody ever came in, bro, right? And I'm blowing up shit. So then all of a sudden, Ann Holloway Masters, who did Bobby Caldwell. I remember back then, she was like a sexy little skinny little girl, right? And I was like young skinny kid, right? And she was like digging on me and shit, right? And she said, hey, how did it happen? She said, hey, would you like to come hang out at my sessions? I said, yeah, And so that's when I really learned how to do technical shit. I got in with an Ann Holloway, and for 3 months, nobody knew I was practicing already. I was like, by 3 months' time, I got it all down. I was blowing up speakers. I remember I would blow speakers and burn out amps and shit like that. And then we would practice all night long, and then we would go back into the Clarence room and go to sleep. And when everybody started coming in, then we would blend in like we were just coming in the front door. You know what I mean? So, and we would never leave we would stay there for months, right? And no one knew. And I remember sometimes we would be sleeping and I'd blow up some shit, like blow up some speakers or either, because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, or either blow up some amps. And I remember Stephen Lehman would come in and he would have a project or something he's working on, or I was going to listen to some stuff and the amps wasn't working. And I remember Stephen Lehman would go, and Willie Clark, they call him Pee Wee. He would go, Pee Wee, you gotta be around here somewhere. What the fuck, man? You blow up these fucking amps, you don't tell anybody, or you fuck these speakers up, I'm telling you, don't turn the music up too loud. And that's how I remember, that's how I learned how to turn the speakers up too loud. I fucking up shit, and they reprimanded Pee Wee, and Pee Wee I don't know nothing about this. So anyway, one day I'm hanging around Ann Holloway, right? And so this time, Ann Holloway, we meet, she was liking me, you know what I mean? And I was finding me attractive. I was I was a kid, I didn't really even realize it, so I'm hanging out, and I asked Ann, hey, could you teach me how to learn the board? Would you teach me things about the console? So while I'm practicing, she goes, yeah, you can come in, you can hang out. Just don't say nothing to me. And if you got questions, you write them down and you ask me after the session is over. So that's how I learned. At night, I would practice myself, fuck up shit, write shit down. And then when I got with her, I would look at what she was doing at the end of her session, ask her questions. And then time went on, and her brother named Tom Holloway, who worked at Criteria, who's a fucking genius on EQing and all kind of shit. I learned how to EQ through him. I learned how to, back then we had tape machines and stuff. I learned how to calibrate machines and technical shit about mixing and all that kind of stuff through Ann Holloway. So I had these hit making producers and engineers teaching me how to do this shit. And they didn't have no Full Sail back there, no fucking, SAE or some dumb shit, I had to break in the studio and learn from these guys, and they didn't even know I was learning, you know what I'm saying? So one day I asked Ann, while she was calibrating the machines, I was saying, Ann, can I just try one time? She said, yeah, sure. So one day I'm leveling this shit, and she was watching me. I didn't know she was watching me. I'm leveling it off, and by this time I had some practice. I'm going through the board, look like I know what I'm doing. I used to call Tom Holloway at night, and they never put two and two together. I would call Tom Holloway at night and ask him, hey, how do I EQ? What frequencies do I EQ horns? What frequencies do I EQ bass? What I do guitars? So when Ann saw me do this, she thought that was the very first time. She goes, have you ever done this before? I said, oh shit, I'm dead, I'm busted. I said to myself, no, my first time touching it. I'm never going to be allowed to go to the studio again. She goes in there with Steve Lehman. She goes, Steve, you see this guy here? Come here, come to the studio. You got to see what he just did. So Steve, he said, you did this? And they're talking about leveling and the sounds and all that kind of shit. And they were like, I'll tell you what. Steve sat me down and said, listen, kid, here's my keys to the studio. You go get you a set made. He gave me like $20. You get you a set made. You bring my keys back. You can come in the studio anytime you want to. You just log it on that board, and I don't care what nobody tells you. If anybody gives you a problem, you tell them, I told you can go in the studio. And you can practice all you want. And that's when I really was able to hang out. You know what I mean?
Incredible.
They thought I was a genius. They didn't know I had practiced for like a year. It was too fucking funny, man.
What advice did Clarence Reed give you that was most important, do you think?
The advice he gave me was this. Let me tell you something, bro. Let me tell you right now. He didn't give me direct advice, but I was able to hang out with these people, man. Watch what they were doing, man. These are hit-making people, man. You know what I mean?
Right.
That makes all the difference in the world when you got those kind of people to hang around. You know what I mean? That's number one. But the advice, this is going to sound really crazy, but the main advice Clarence Reed told me was, I can say this now, I couldn't say that back then. He told me, hey, this place is getting ready to close down. The best advice he told me was, never trust anybody and keep your music, own your music, okay? and he told me that always own your music. That was his terms, but what he meant was own your masters. Own your music masters. Best advice he told me was, hey, Henry's getting ready to close this bitch down. Take all your tapes out because it's fixing to go down. And that same year, Prelude Records saw me. They came from New York because they were under the same umbrella with Morris Levy's umbrella. Prelude, it was Prelude Records and TK Records. They were all under the same umbrella with Morris Levy, right? And they sent for me, and I took my tapes out, and just to sure the place closed down. TK Record was over. That's when blues and everything was going out, and KC Sunshine had his run, and I think KC left the place, and it was just going down. And Henry filed for Chapter 11, but I learned so much stuff musically. How to make hit records from Clarence Reed. It was really Clarence Reed and King Sporty, Noel Williams. I learned a lot about making hit records.
Are you a instrumentalist to the likes of Nile Rodgers? That caliber of talent? Because I see you right now as sort of, before we even get into the bass music and the interesting stuff, that I'm seeing you as someone that they might have been, like Glenn Campbell was a session guitarist. Were you really good at it like that?
I was a really good bass player. I was considered a really good bass player. It was Chocolate Perry. And when Chocolate Perry was out of town, because he used to play with Crosby, Stills, and Nash, I think it was, he was a touring bassist also, but he was also a studio bassist and a producer. He would be the one they would always pick. Whenever Chocolate was in town, everybody wanted Chocolate Perry. He was a great bass player. But whenever Chocolate Perry wasn't in town, I was the guy they'd come hire to play bass. And Chocolate Perry, he taught me a lot too about music production, but I hope that answers your question.
It does. And I was going to ask you about Henry, was going to be a question, but you just told me that you learned about the keeping your masters and all that stuff. That was more of a Clarence Reed thing. How did you learn about publishing and all that stuff? And what age did you start getting credit and figure out that part of it?
Okay, I didn't get any credit until Sunnyview. I didn't even get credit when I was just doing all that. I started producing at TK, at the end of TK, when hip-hop was in New York. Then they started listening to younger people down here in Miami. Okay, before then, they were listening to no young people because the older, I guess you can say the older people, they were the older producers and all that Henry Stone blues and R&B thing. They were the ones that was in charge, and young people were just there, and nobody was. And back then, see, people were nervous when they see young people like us coming. They were nervous about their positions, so they wasn't giving us a fucking nothing. You know what I mean? So, so at the end of TK, that's when I started getting I was doing a lot of production and I was doing a lot of recording engineering. I came in then, but then I didn't get any credit until Sunnyview came out. A couple of years later when Sunnyview came up, you know what I mean? Came out. Because I was at the BG studio first. Most of my hip-hop stuff, I recorded at the early stuff, I recorded at the BG studio at night because Barry Gibbs would let me. He would let me hang out with this engineer named Larry Janis, and then I stole. I had to steal some shit from there too. I stole my masters. You know what I'm saying? Barry didn't even care. He let me go in. I don't know if I'm moving too fast, but
how do you come across the Bee Gees? So how are you starting to play in sessions to get with the Bee Gees? Is that the
okay? Now that's a good question. How the hell did I come across the Bee Gees? How the fuck that shit happen? Okay.
Talking like it's, I'm just hanging out with the fucking Bee Gees. No.
Okay, I used to hang out with this guy named Seth Snyder. He was like some weed smoking motherfuckers. And Seth Snyder had a big old warehouse he was growing weed in, right? So, but he was building studios too. So he owned half this warehouse block. 3/4 of it was for weed. The other half was his technical shop where people would come in. He fix equipment and build studios and shit and leave for Australia and set the studio. I'd be the guy to hang out and watch the studio while he was gone. So what happened was the Bee Gees brought this DX7. They had a keyboard back then called a Yamaha DX7.
Correct.
It was brand new back then. And the Japanese used to translate the manuals from Japanese. The Japanese would translate the manuals from Japanese to English. And can you imagine Japanese motherfuckers translating the Japanese manuals to English?
Missing words here and there, probably.
It was hard for white people to understand that shit. But for me, it was easy as hell. And plus, I was so fucked up, I guess I could probably translate any goddamn thing. You know what I'm saying? I was high as a motherfucker, bro, okay? But what happened was, nobody could read the fucking manual but me, okay? And that's how I met Barry Gibbs. You understand? So Barry said, wow, hey, could I borrow this guy for a while and come over to my studio and show me how to do some things? And Barry would have this fucking room full of equipment that was given to them. And he would say, hey, you know, Amos, I can't quite figure out what to do with all this stuff. Let me show you this room. So he shows me this room. I'm talking about, bro, I can't express to you. This room was big as fuck. It had mountains of shit in it from like the beginning of the door to the end. Bro, I thought I was in fucking Alice in Wonderland shit, man. No, music, bro. I thought I was in fucking goddamn fucking, what's the Yellow Brick Road shit, man. I hit some shit, the jackpot, right? I saw all this equipment, Fairlights, Synclaviers, these are keyboards,
right.
808 drum machine, 909 drum machines before they were even out. You understand what I'm saying, bro? All kind of keyboards, synthesizers. I said, well, I could probably fuck around with some of this shit and see what I could do with it, right? That's when we started doing hip-hop. And, you know, I was a kid. Nobody knew about hip-hop in Miami. They weren't thinking about it. All these big-time producers and shit, you know. They were in the melodic musical shit, you know. And I was, like, doing this hip-hop shit, and I got a couple of rappers. That's when I was doing this movie called Cry of the City. And these gangsters was doing this movie Cry of the City, and some kind of way they took on to me, and they gave me, like, 2 floors and told me to manage these kids, and I let these kids run wild on these 2 floors while they was cutting this movie, this mix. We had groupies up there and everything like that. And so that's how anyway, back up to Barry Gibb. Barry Gibbs introduced me to all this fucking equipment room for the equipment, and we did this song. We did this song with this guy Mighty Rock called Mighty Rock and his boy Manny G, and we did this song called Double Deuce. Ain't no thing about throwing down.
Ain't no thing about throwing down. Mighty R-O-C-K, rocking the place. So young ladies, don't you stand in the days. I'm gonna put a big smile on your pretty face. I'm gonna show you that I'm full of romance. By the end of the night, to be in a trance, laying there in a deep, deep sleep. I gotta give you the kiss to get you back on your feet, cause I'm full of charm. I mean no harm. The ladies, don't you be alarmed. Let me let you lay in my arms so I can hold you tight and never let go when it comes to love. I am a pro. Get it, got it, don't you forget it. I'm Mighty Rock, you won't regret it. If you're having a fun feel now, let me hear everybody say alright.
And that became pretty much the first rap record out of Miami, definitely the first Latino rap record out of Miami that did something. Because when we did that record, I took it because I said the Bee Gees ain't never going to do this. This is just going to fucking let me just record and play around with me, and never going to happen. So I knew Freddie Stonewall, and Freddie Stonewall told me, hey, listen, don't worry, man, we're going to get this back, because I knew him from TK. And he said, hey, man, listen, don't worry, man. I heard TK was getting back together again, and that's a whole nother thing. I had a dream about that shit, and the studio was made at TK, just like same colors, everything. The goddamn studio door, the stained glass, everything in my dream was the same shit. Anyway, I got the tapes that I did with Double Deuce. I stole the tapes. I let Freddie Stonewall hear it on a cassette. He says, man, we could put this out. I said, there's no way they're going to let me take those tapes, so I stole them. And I left Bee Gees studio, started hanging back out at Sunnyview then. At that time, Sunnyview. And Henry said, hey, man, you know, you can make a lot of money doing this kind of music. So I gave him the masters. I gave him the masters. When we recorded that record, I think he sold like 60,000 the first time around, you know what I'm saying, of Double Deuce. However, Henry sold records, I don't... Henry had a way of selling records and nobody knew that he was selling them. So anyway, not even Morris Levy. Morris Levy didn't know he was doing that shit, but that's how that progressed. It went from TK Records to Seth Snyder, from Seth Snyder to the Bee Gees, from the Bee Gees back to Henry Stone and Sunnyview, like that.
And Double Deuce is your first experience in hip-hop. That's number one.
First, MC Flex and the FBI Crew. That record was a hit, too, in New York.
Justify, but when you're rocking with the label, then you qualify. But when you're rocking with the freedom that you be in sport, you heard of the gang, it's called the fraud. And when you party all around and you got surprise, you heard of the crew called the FBI. And now the rhythm you see, it's just like a team.
That was my first experience with hip hop. That's when I was like really introduced to hip hop, and that's when I started paying attention to it. You know what I mean? I said, wow, these guys hip hop, what the fuck? You know, so I started doing some research. Said, oh shit, you know, Davey, DMX, and all those guys, you know.
One for the treble, two for the bass. Come on, Davey, let's rock this place.
I said, okay, fuck. So I started working on it there at Self Studio, DB Recording. I started working on hip hop, and then Bee Gees. I didn't. So that was my first production. My first hip hop production was Mighty Rock and Manny G and Double Deuce, and that's when I took out those Fairlights and I took out those Synclaviers, and that's when we started Double Deuce. Deuce, 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 that 909, that 909 drum machine. You know, Mighty Rock King. However the fuck he was saying, and that was my first thing. And I let Henry hear it, and Henry must have tested it because he said, hey man, you can make a lot of money doing this. So I left the Bee Gees just recording music and nothing was happening. I wanted to do more, you know what I mean? So then Henry took me on, and I started cutting all this music, and that was, you know, that's how I started. You know, I started doing the Beat Is Fresh. Beat Is Fresh was one of my first productions, and that shit started, and some kind of way, and, you know, I think it was a void because nobody was doing hip hop here. So I would do those records, and the kids would jump right on it locally, and see Henry would sell the stuff regionally undercover, so Roulette Records wouldn't know. So he was making his undercover money like that. He would sell these things in like Southeast region, in the Midwest region, like Texas and all that kind of stuff, and nobody was paying attention. And he would sell so many before he took it to Roulette Records and then put it on Sunnyview. You understand? I was taught to make hits for the people. I didn't make music for me. And back then, because of hip hop, I would go to these block parties in town just to see what the hell people were into. See, I was not into hip hop. I didn't even like rap music. I was into jazz, man. I was into doing jazz, but I couldn't make no money doing that shit. You know what I mean?
You're a young version of Nile Rodgers of playing bass, getting it on sessions out in the South there.
I didn't even like R&B and blues, man. I was a jazz musician. That was my heart, man, but I couldn't make no money doing it. And my father was pressuring me, man, you got to make some money. So sure. I had to make money doing recording sessions doing blues. But then when that died out, and then Henry gave me an opportunity, I would go study. Okay, Henry told me, hey, you can make a lot of money doing this. I said, my daddy's telling me I got to make money. So I didn't even like it, man. I'm out there sitting there by myself with my bag of weed, you know, sitting in my little blue Toyota, all right, raggedy ass Toyota, sitting, I'm a recluse. I'm really not a people person back then. I was very shy. And I'm sitting out there just watching what these people like. I'm listening to these DJs playing this music. And I would take those records. And also Henry had a distribution. Tone Records was next to the studio. When Sunnyview was up, I would go in there and hear what these guys were playing, and it was a bunch of them, man. All that stuff back in the day that was hitting, first coming out, that's what I would listen to. And that's what I would like say, okay, this is what I got to do to make my shit happen. You know what I'm saying? So I would just take them as blueprints, African Bambaataa. So
you hear Planet Rock in the Park. Does it catch your ear as a musician, or are you just going, oh yeah, I could do that? Yeah, it was like, no, it wasn't even about, I can do that. That wasn't a question. Like, I went from playing bass, studying bass, to studying recording engineer. My mother taught me, like, all you got to do is persevere. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's all relevant. You practice the shit, you learn the games people play, and play them better than they. So it was no question about what I can do. It was just a question about, let me perfect the craft and just do it. So I went from playing bass, being a studio musician, to being a recording engineer. It was a transition. I transitioned from being a recording engineer to being a music producer. And whatever I had to do, okay, now what I had to do was go out there in the hood and learn what the fuck they're doing. So when you hear party people, does it really excite you, or do you not give a shit? Hell, I don't give a fucking shit. It was exciting the people. It wasn't exciting me. Listen, it was all about making the people happy, making music for people, making music for the masses. If this is what they want, I just give it to them. It wasn't nothing like I was loving it. The thing I was loving, the art was making the music. It's an art and making music for people. That in itself is an art. That's an art form. In order for you to make music for people, for the masses to like them, that was an art form. See what I mean? For me, that was the whole thing for me. You know, just doing music, and I didn't care what it was. For me, it's either two kinds of music, good or bad. So that was the opportunity that presented itself. So I wasn't crazy about party people, but when I heard that party people, see, I was studying how they were doing it, what they were doing around it. Then I would go back to the studio, and then I would go bass, rock, express. Oh, man, I love ADE, man. We get to that. Don't get to ADE just yet on me. Now, you know that's my voice on that first one, right? You know that's me. I do, and I always thought it was a vocoder, and it was not a vocoder. Nah, it was a Korg. What inspired me was, it wasn't the vocoder. What inspired me was Battlestar Galactica. Remember the Cylons? I do.
Attention. His Eminence, the Imperious Leader, will be with us Shortly, his ship has landed at the air dome, presenting His Eminence, our imperious leader.
That's where I got the idea to like tighten that up. It was just something I heard on a Cylon. I said Cylon would be good to do this. So I tightened up the chord, delay, and I would talk like this, bass, rock, express. And then that's what would come out. That feedback, it would come out like this.
And that's pretty much, hey, and that's what was going on between your ears. That was the actual sound, right?
Right.
And we're going to go there. Let's go there right now because Double Deuce comes out. What's next?
Double Deuce comes out.
Double is deuce, the deuce is double. Watch out, party people, cause here comes trouble.
First, I bring Double Deuce to Henry. Henry said I can make a lot of money, okay? Found out later sneaking in looking at books, Double Deuce sold like 60,000 the first 2 months, right? Okay. The Beat Is Fresh, I think, was the next one. Now listen, I don't remember a lot of that shit because I was putting out like 5 records a week at one time. I was doing so good.
Right.
I was buying everybody cars and shit. And
You're just out there playing the bootleg game and putting stuff out.
Right. Okay, Double Deuce came first. That was the big one. That was the one that stood out. And then the Beat Is Fresh. That one right there did a lot of, that shit fucking did good on the streets, man. Beat Is Fresh. And that was like my second one after Double Deuce, right? The beat is fresh. The beat is fresh. And then, man, so many of those motherfuckers, I don't remember how that shit went down, bro.
Hey, where's Ghetto Jump fit in the mix?
I did Ghetto Jump.
Jump, everybody, ghetto jump. Everybody, ghetto jump.
Bass Rock Express. Rock the Planet.
Moving to the music, the planet is shaking, it's moving to the music. Suck MC, suck MC.
All in the same weekend.
When do we find the cocaine, my brother?
By then, I'm making money. All right, Henry's paying me money. Strip joints was a way of life for me.
When you were doing Ghetto Jump, you talk about spending 20 grand on a stripper that night. You were coming up. How'd you have 20 grand at that point to blow on a stripper?
I was doing side projects for dope dealers. Back then, I was doing tracks for like 5 grand on the side.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? You know, we doing albums for 20 grand. And I'm like 19, 20 years old, and it don't mean shit to me. It's going to last forever, you know?
Right.
I wasn't trying to manage no money. And plus, I'm like on coke. I wasn't thinking about nothing. That money was just, you know, I'm partying. That's how it came around. And so like, even though Henry wasn't paying me, I was getting paid. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's how it happened. I spent most of my time I was sleeping in the studio pretty much, unless I was hanging. I had a party in a hotel or some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? And the drugs came for free because I'm working for the dope boys. You know what I'm saying?
It's actually taken off now in the Hispanic community down in Mexico, these carritos. There's a documentary you might search out where these drug cartel guys are hiring this guy on this side of up in LA, and he makes these songs about these guys, and they pay him a bunch of money, and then they play it in the clubs. They're like, it's like gangster music for the gangs, the carritos, they said. Yeah, that sounds like you're the early carrito.
Wish I could hook up with them motherfuckers. Listen, the rappers wasn't going to strip joints. It was me, and I took Michael Sterling to the strip joints. Michael Sterling started telling everybody else about the strip joints. That's how that shit started, okay? I was the first one. It was a way of life for me, bro. I was hitting strip joints back in the day. Now, these artists, they go to test their music in strip joints. They don't understand that I'm the very first one to do that shit, okay? I'm the one who got inspired by the strippers to do the music and the drugs. I used to make 2 meanings with my music, and I got that from Clarence Reed. Clarence Reed would always be in the studio double meaning his music.
So you go into the cocaine days, and you're talking about set it off. The bass is too strong, meant that your coke was too strong.
That's right, man.
Might give you a seizure, so you better cut it a little bit and give it a chop.
That's right. I would mix the shit up with nursery rhymes and TV themes. And I'd be talking about drugs.
Gucci base meant that you had, designer cocaine, not just cocaine, but it was the Gucci because that was
absolutely, man.
That was the fly shit back then.
The Gucci, dog. I had that Gucci on your ass.
We're here showing up, my dear. The Gucci crew, 2 MCs of the year. So listen up close as we illustrate and shake the earth with our Gucci bass. Ambitions grow gargantuan, of rap gladiator. My throne, I fricassee an MC, standing in my way with alterations, declarations. What else can I say? I have abundance around the chronological order. To sucker MC straight to the border. Executioner of rhyme knowledge on my side. Now to stimulate the beat and keep you petrified. Gucci bass.
Well, tell me real quick, we might have moved past it, but how did the big Miami mistake happen? Explain to folks the big Miami mistake.
And what song was that? I don't know which song. It's Coming In Fresh. Okay. It's this place in Miami it's a strip joint in Miami called Alley Cat, right? One of my favorite places to go, right? So I spent mad bucks on this chick. The bitch was just fucking, doing a bump and watching this bitch take her clothes off. So I would fucking hang out with people like Greg Hines. They would come through, like people like that would come. It was like a lot of elite people. We'd be in the VIP room, right?
Greg Hines, like Gregory Hines, the movie star?
Yeah, Gregory Hines, the tap dancer. Bitches hated that motherfucker. Right? But he get high and throw water and shit on the bitches. He wouldn't throw money, but anyway. So I was like fascinated by this bitch. Listen, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I did so much coke wouldn't get hard, so I just got off and watching, So her name was Tracy, Jewish girl. And so we were like really friends. So one night, finally got this bitch out of her clothes, right?
You took her from the club back to the studio.
Oh yeah, I took her from the club back to the studio. She's like, oh wow, man, this is great, man. So she gets all turned on and shit, and she takes her clothes off, and I'm like, and I would see what happened was what I would do at night, I would be mixing, and then I would stop the tape and go off and just take a break and go to the strip joint for a while, and come back and finish my shit, right? Mm-hmm. But that night, I was fucking around. I was recording the bass. I remember I left and I came back. I was working on the bass sound. I wanted to get it right. Like, back then we called it a drop. It was like more like a thump, like boom, 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 boom. You know what I mean? Trying to impress this chick, and I had the music down low, and she's dancing, and ass on her, bro. That bitch had a nice round ass. God damn it, that fine Jewish bitch. But anyway, oh Lord. So I'm trying to impress her. She's like impressed. I remember hearing that shit go. I prolonged it a little bit, right? And I remember saying to myself, that sounds interesting. But what happened, the only problem was what got more interesting was their booty. So when their booty got more interesting, I remember recording the song on the quarter inch. You know what a quarter inch is, right?
I do.
That's the tape machine where we record before we send it to make it a record.
And get them heads clean before you get that shit recorded, too.
That's right. So check it out. I'm recording at the same time I forgot the shit was going on. I left the 2-inch on, which is the big machine where all the music is, before we put it on the quarter inch. I went in the office. I had an office in the back of the studio. That's where my office was, because by this time I'm the head producer. I'm getting all kind of shit. I'm cocky, I'm the man doing the shit, you know what I'm saying? I get to do all this shit, right? So we walk in the back. Oh my God, damn it, we had fun back then that day, I won't get too graphic for your people, but
these gonna be your people, not my people. These your people, brother.
Fast forward, she's gone now. It's like blue. You gotta go. Get your cab out of here. You gotta go. I can't take you. You gotta call last. I gotta finish this shit. It's Sunday night, right? Monday morning now. I said, oh fuck, I gotta get this. So I don't even listen to it. So fucked up and fogged out on coke and drugs. I forgot I left that. I recorded it and I didn't even hear it because my shit was real close that time. It was almost mixed. You know what I'm saying? It was there. So I didn't give a fuck. I said, fuck it. I was putting out these bitches like left and right. You know what I mean? And I was putting out so many of them. I had a system down, man. I had a formula where I was just bam, bam, bam. And I forgot I played with that damn 808. And I sent it to Mike Fuller. Mike Fuller was the guy who mastered. He was top mastering guy back then, right? And he did it, and then next thing I know, the acetates are made. They press it up. They put it out there. So now I'm going to the flea market. For whatever reason, I'm out there and for checking out bitches or going to buy something. Or I don't remember what the fuck I was. I was just out there, but I always visit the mom and pops, right? See what was going on. So when I'm walking in this mom and pops, people are going through the music. Back then, people would go through 12 inches. It was 12 inches. They were very popular, man. People were actually literally going in there. You see like 20 people out there at any given time going through the bins trying to find out the records they want to buy. I walk in there, and my record is on. That goddamn record, man. That Coming in Fresh. And I hear this. I said, what the fuck? I done fucked up. I left that shit like that. I said this to myself. And then people are going, hey, what is that? What's the name of that shit? I see, and these are customers. And then a couple of people get in line to go, I want that record, right? I say, you like that shit? I say, yeah, that shit's happening, man. You know, I don't know what words they used back then. It was, and that's the shit. You know what I mean? That's what they were saying.
Coming in fresh. We're coming in fresh. Coming in fresh. Coming in fresh. We're coming in fresh. Coming in fresh. We're double deuce. We're coming in fresh. Gonna prove to everybody that we're the best. We're not in scratching and we are rapping.
So then that same day, I'm like fucked up. I said, Henry's gonna fucking kill me, right? I said, we got to do all this all over again. I got to do it right. And then I walk out. The shit got so popular. Before when I leave the mom and pop store, I'm fucking pissed off and scared and nervous, going back to my car to go to the studio to get ready to correct this shit and to tell Henry, hey, listen, I fucked up. You know what I mean? We got to repress this shit and remaster it. Then somebody drives through in their fucking raggedy ass Capri or some shit, right? That got bass in it, right? And it's rattling. It's killing the speakers. The speakers are screaming for breath, right? And this was raggedy bass, okay? This wasn't like perfected bass, all right? I go, wait, hey, stop. I said, hey, you like that sound? This is the shit. That's happening. I love this shit. I said, fuck. So I just perfected it, man, and started doing the shit, and that's when bass came out, right? That was it right there, bro. You know what I'm saying?
808, or what we're called now, sustained 808. You're the king of sustained 808.
808, bro. You know what I'm saying? So, like, hey, that's how that shit started, and I started perfecting it. I started making it cleaner.
Where's Jam On It fall in this?
Okay, I met Henry. Henry hooked me up with this guy named Ben, right? And,
Ben, great guy, Cosmo D.
Yeah, man, the guy's cool as shit, and we got along really good. And Cosmo was fucking cool as shit, man. And
everybody says that, man.
Yeah, man, Cosmo's the coolest guy in the business, man, especially back in those days.
And he had great sound back then. That Jam On It was clean.
Oh, man, that Jam On It was clean as fuck, man.
New York had a really clean sound. You know, I had Lonzo on, and Lonzo's stuff was clean. And I'm a West Coast guy from California, so we had Egyptian Lover and all that, but they were definitely ahead in New York quality-wise, and it had to bleed here, and they had to get it figured out as the 80s closed down.
Live and in the place, it's nuclear!
His shit was so clean because they were perfectionists, but the engineers were perfect. They had top quality engineers who were like studied this shit, you know what I'm saying? And they were really into like clean. You know, we were into more like I didn't give a fuck. I wasn't thinking about clean. I was just thinking about putting that shit out there. I was putting them out so fast, and I was so high. People was on my shit because it was new, it was different, and it was what they wanted. I filled the void, you know what I mean?
And where is Jam On It in the singles on Sunnyview as far as what was before it? How many were before it?
Okay, I don't remember, bro, but I know Jam On It came on after me. He came on after, like, I was doing my thing a minute. And what happened was, Henry thought that Ben and I would hit it off. Henry hooked us up, you know what I mean? It was pretty cool. The only thing was, the record that I did wasn't so successful, so we just like kind of like didn't. You know, he's in New York, I'm in Miami. Let me tell you, New York did not like my music, and I didn't like New York, you know what I mean? I didn't like New York, and New York didn't like me, all right? And they weren't into my vibe. And they had a whole different thing about, concept about, and vision about how music was supposed to be. And I had my whole vision of what it was supposed to be. And so we didn't really, New York didn't hit it off with me, and I didn't hit it off with New York. So I focused on California. We were hand in hand. California in my style was the shit. All right, we sold.
It's because of the bump systems.
Yeah, and let me tell you something, boy. I sold some fucking music in California, Midwest, Texas. They were jumping on my shit. I mean, a lot, you know, big time, you know. But for some reason, New York I think it was politics. I think because I was this Southern guy and my shit wasn't up to par as far as quality. See, I was into art. I wasn't thinking about quality. Perfection to me was, I was taught by an old Jewish lady, which was Seth Snyder's mom. Just think money, don't sit on a record, and just keep moving on. I was taught not to sit on records. I was taught to finish that bitch, get it out of the way, on to the next one. I wouldn't try to perfect shit. Okay, that's just done. The expression is there.
Well, you can sit there and never stop. That's a never-ending thing. You got to stop somewhere, and you got to turn it out at some point.
And that's why Henry liked me, because I would put out 5 records and 3 of them would be a hit every week for a 2-year period. I was churning them, bro. So many records I don't even remember them, bro. I was just putting them out. That's why when you ask me, I'm not that guy, bro. I don't sit, number one, I don't dwell on none of that shit. Like right now, I'm doing what I do, and I don't even think about that. Now I respect it. I appreciate the people. Appreciating what we did. I don't dwell on that shit. I don't have time for it. Never did, you know?
Cry of the City, Knights of the City. How was it to do the soundtrack for that? Of course, I had Prince Marky D on last Friday, and he talked about his half-top denim that he wore in that show. Man, the Fat Boys were just dope, and that was...
It's like those guys are on there, man. Those guys are there. They were there doing that shit, man. And it was great. It was fun. It was fun hanging out doing that, man. It was fun because, you know, the executive producers... They let us do our thing, man. These guys actually gave me 2 floors in the hotel to manage. That means that actually I wasn't managing shit. Girls were there, artists was there, people was there, dancers. We had a fucking blast, bro, and it was great, man. It was a great thing, man. That's when I was doing my thing, bro. It was a good experience.
What's a great thought about Cry of the City?
Meeting Joe Granda. Joe Granda was a producer. Meeting Joe Granda, he produced like Diamond Girls.
If you can feel what I am feeling, then the truth is just believing. You're my diamond girl. If you can feel what I am feeling, then the truth is just believing. You're my diamond girl. Ooh, oh, diamond girl. You're my diamond girl. Ooh, oh, diamond girl. Diamond girl, you make me feel like I'm on.
That's when I really started getting into rap. Really. You know? I wasn't thinking about no rap. I'm trying to get my damn fucking jazz career going on. You know what I'm saying? And I met Joe Granda, and Joe Granda said, hey, let's cut this. So even though I was at the Bee Gees studio, I was still at Seth's studio. So I went to Seth's studio to record MC Flex and the FBI Crew. And that record became a hit in New York, man. It became a #1 hit in New York, I think it was, you know? And, you know, that's the best memory I have. Meeting Joe Granda and being introduced to rap music. That was really cool.
The Megatron, Rock the Planet. What comes to mind?
Oh, man, my buddy, man, Sammy Lattimore. These are my spies, man. These guys would go out and tell me who's doing what so I can cock block it and use Henry's power and influence to, like, stop anybody from taking our reign. You know what I mean? So they would go out and say, hey, man, these boys over there trying to do this. So I would do some shit and just totally kill that shit because we put it out first. And the Megatrons, that MCB, that EP, Basis What We Want, Oh Inspector, those are the things that come about. But really, on a personal note, my buddies, man, Sammy Lattimore and Renard with No Regard, these were the kids who were younger than me. They were like 15, 16 years old, hanging out.
No longer around.
Yeah, he's no longer around, man. But I love those guys, man, because You know, those guys were the guys that I would trust on, because I never made a hit myself. I would have a committee. I learned from Quincy Jones. I learned from Berry Gordy. You got to have a committee of people. I never.
You're so funny. You matter of factly. You just mentioned folks like, I was at Barry Gibb's studio, and Berry Gordy once told me. I mean, you've lived a really blessed life. And what Berry Gordy tell you?
And Berry Gordy told me, listen, you got to have a committee. You can't try to make a hit by yourself. You got to have a committee of people to hear your music, and before you release anything, they would have a system, 1 or 2, or they would say yes, 2 fingers no, or that kind of thing. He would vote on it. And whatever.
Music rating system like they do in radio stations.
I did the same thing. It was like, not exactly, but I would have these guys that I would always hang around and trust. They would tell me the truth. This is crap, so we forget about it. That's good. We forget about it. And then I would even go further. What I would do was I get 5 tunes or 3 or 4 tunes that they thought. Then I would take it to Luke. And while Luke was setting up, I said, Luke, which one of these you think is a hit? And Luke would go, put it on, man. Put that on. Go ahead, man. Put it on. Get it to your boy, man. So Luke go, man, that's a fucked up record, man. Hey, man, you're going off the beat, man. Why you going off the beat? They're going to throw everybody off, man. That ain't no hit, man. That's a hit. Yeah, that's a hit right there. That's a hit. So then, and that was my system. Then I would know, okay, let's put these out. And then, just to sure, that's why I was so consistent. It wasn't because I was some genius. I didn't even like that kind of music. I would depend on everybody else, my little crew, and then Luke. You know what I'm saying? Before Luke was a producer. You know what I mean?
He was a promoter. He was a guy running around making parties.
And that's how that went down,
Did you work with the 2 Live crew at all?
Not back then, although Marquis and I were very good friends because we would party out together a hell of a fucking lot. Yeah, we worked a lot. We worked a lot of strip joints. We were professional booty goers. We would watch some booty like a motherfucker. We were professional booty watchers, and we were professional paymasters. Okay, it was me and Marquis a lot, and that was the guys from Expose, a guy named Frankie Diaz. He's a preacher now. Man, we would have these hoes lined up, man, in a place like Alley Cat and Pier 1. I forget the name of the strip joint we would go hang out at, man. And in Treasure Island, we would hang out at Treasure Island. We would have 10 bitches lined up. He would have his bitches lined up on one side. I had my bitches lined up on the other side. And we weren't even watching these bitches. We would just be tipping them, and we were talking about shit, talking about how to make music and just laughing and giggling and shit. It was fun, man. It was great, man. I wouldn't change that shit for nothing, bro.
Hey, P.B. Floyd, Computer Funk.
Oh, man, yeah. Oh, that came before all of that shit, man. I'm glad you brought that up, bro. P.B. Floyd. It wasn't a rap record, but it was like a funk record. You know what I mean?
This is a computer. This is a computer. A computer designed to do what you want it to. A computer designed to make you dance. A computer that is you. To take you to a new nation. A new place of funk. A really funky computer. Computer funk. Make you jump. Computer funk. Make you jump.
Dermer Fallout.
Yeah, but they called him Dermer because the brothers who were the radio personalities didn't know how to pronounce Dermer. So they called the bitch Demir. Yeah, this is Fallout from Demir. So it just caught on. So he used that shit,
Some of the ADE was some of my favorite. Of course, the Nucleus. I love all the Nucleus, but the ADE Transformer, Bass Rock Express.
Bass Rock Express was the first record he did. He was 16 years old, and Billy Hines was his father. And what happened was Frank Cornelius used to do all their records for Foresight. But because I was selling so many bass records they had a record store in the flea market. They were selling so many records. So ADE, he told his dad, hey, what I want for my birthday is I want a record produced by Amos Larkins. Because the kids were into my sound, you see what I'm saying? And so he said, okay. So anyway, we in the studio. So Billy Hines said, hey man, my son want to do a record with you. So now I'm gonna tell you something about this kid right now before I go any further. That kid's fucking great producer. The guy had a vision. Okay, he was a 16-year-old guy, had a vision, but he didn't know anything. You understand? He didn't know how to do it. Just like me, when I first started, I was around a lot of people who knew what they were doing, and I learned. You know what I mean? So his father hired me, which I was the guy doing things then, and we doing this record. And so his son came up with these lyrics, and he said, bass, rock, express, whatever, right? I'm gonna put Green Acres behind this shit, and we finna blow up the world, right? So I put Green Acres behind. I said, all right, guys, you guys just be quiet. Do not fuck with me while I'm doing this track. Let me get the track together, y'all, and then I'll let you know when it's time for y'all to do y'all thing, right? You know, come in. So then he got on the mic. He just didn't know any better. Now, I'm not coming down on this guy. I'm not knocking this guy. That guy was fucking great. And the lyrics was awesome. He just did not know how to do the vocoder, which was not a vocoder. It was a chord. No one knew how to do that shit but me. I was the only one doing that shit. So I said, listen, bro. I told his dad, I said, listen, we'll be here all night with this shit. We'll be here for weeks trying to get him to do this. I said, let me show him how to do this first one. And then from that point on, he'll know how to do it. So I got his lyrics. I went in and I did the bass, rock, express, which came out with bass, rock, express. You know what I'm saying?
It's the baddest, man. Yeah, I do know what you mean. That's car music.
By that time, I had the bass perfected. That's one of my best bass tracks. You know, as far as technical application is concerned. That's one of my best records because quality-wise, that shit was all spot on perfect. You know what I'm saying? And then from then on, the rest is history from him. And that guy went on to be a great producer. But he learned how to do it from me. But it wasn't nothing to come down. People, you know, it wasn't nothing to come down on the guy. The guy, because once he found out how to do it, he did it. I wanted to get it over with, get paid, and go to strip joint. It was gonna be all night with that guy. Fuck, man. Let me just show you how to do this shit. You know what I'm saying? So we did the shit, and the guy was great, man. The guy's a very talented guy. You know.
My favorite part of my Connie interview is when she talks about how she just showed up. You guys had everything ready there at the complex, and she laid down her track. But you guys decided to press that a cappella version and to run that a cappella right after talking to Connie about it and get it on like I'm going to do right now. Mm-hmm. Let's take a listen at that real quick.
Right. I want to get to know you better. Seems like we both belong together. You rock my body like no one did. Full force, lots of care. Prep to the rhythm as I stared at the way you move. Lots of class as you stomp and grind. I like that move, boy, you've got that groove. Rocking in the streets to this funky beat. This funky beat, just you and me.
And man, I mean, just almost eerie how cool for, she's a one-hit wonder. She didn't have anything that really got past that success, but you had a million gals there. There was a million. So how did you pick Connie?
Let me tell you how I picked Connie, man. This is crazy, okay? Check this out. When I did the record, everybody thought it was a girl at first, right? Because I went, I want, and I sped the tape up. Chocolate Perry taught me how to speed the tape up and do little tricks with it, right?
She said she heard a tape and she didn't know what it was. She says it might even have been Amos, she said.
Yeah, it was me. So what happened was, Henry, everybody wanted a black girl to do it. I'm going, no, man, not a black girl. I said, we in Hialeah, man. I said, we released this shit in Hialeah. I said, when everybody finds out it's a Cuban, we're going to sell fucking goddamn 50,000 of these bitches in like 2 hours, okay? Every Cuban, and they going to bring their, I say, and them Cubans, I say, when they find out a Cuban did it, they going to bring their kids to go buy records for this bitch. Right. So that's how she came out. They wanted a black girl to do it. I said, no fucking way. So I got this dude named John, and he worked in distribution. He said, I think I know a girl, man, who can do this, man. I said, bring her, man. She's got to be Cuban, though. Right. He brought her, and I said, okay. We tried a couple of girls at first. John kept going, I think I got this girl. I said, no, she ain't the one, man. I said, she can't. Because what I did was I asked him, I said, sing this. I want to get to know you better. And I would get these girls going, I want to get to know you. I said, yeah.
Trailing like Whitney. Yeah.
I'm like, bitch, we're not looking for bitches to have orgasms. We're looking for bitches to sing some music. Right? No, you ain't got it. Next.
At least Elisa already happened at Funky Little Peach time, or was that after?
That was around that time, man. That was around the time. I don't know exactly, but I know that was definitely around that time. You know what I mean? And what happened was Connie came in with her parents, you know, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on here, right? Goddamn family coming in here and shit, you know? So she comes in, real quiet looking girl. I'm like, okay, what the fuck is this shit, John, right? So I go, hey, sing this. I want to get to know you better, seems. And she goes, I went, that's it. You can do it.
You got it.
I said, you're the one. You got it. Take this home, learn this shit. So she took it home, she learned it, and the rest is history, man.
What's been your biggest payout?
Okay, my biggest payout, and I'm not going to mention any numbers. My biggest payday from the 80s was Bass Rock Express and Connie, Funky Little Beat.
And then, so you've worked with people since then. Let's move forward. You're a very clean man now. No more coke, no more weed. You're a vegetarian. You're yoga man.
I do meditation. For the most part, I'm vegan, like 98% of the time, recently 90% of the time. I've veered off a little bit with meat and everything, but I've replaced alcohol with carrot juice.
Hey, you're Rick James, bitch, but you're still alive.
That's right. I'm Rick James, bitch, but now I drink carrot juice.
You are Rick James.
I'm still a freak, bitch, but you better not get in the room now unless you're ready to fuck, all right? Because back then, baby, my PP was on strike, but now, hey, baby, after all that carrot juice and all that green drinking shit, that's right, I replace all that alcohol with carrot juice and green drinks, and motherfucking the cock gets hard as hell without Viagra.
What have you done? You've gotten paid on something between then and there, I'm imagining.
I've done remixes for J Records and Alicia Keys. I've good paydays from J Records, a lot of remixes. But one of my biggest remixes was Like You'll Never See Me Again. And that shit's being played in every fucking workout room in fucking America to this day.
Every time you kiss me like you'll never see me again. Every time you touch me like this is the last time. Promise that you'll love me like you'll never see me again.
And Pitbull, I did a song called She's Freaky.
The dough with the dude when I ski, that like it hard, rough, face down, ass up, yes sir. That like their hair pulls when you beat from the back. That's what I like, but mama, can you really get down like that? She's freaky, she knows how to do what I like, just right. She's freaky, she the talk dirty all night.
With some producers, I forget their names, some Latin guy. She's freaky. Now that was a big payday, because that shit was like on that album was like $500,000. I think it was a gold record, and I got a whole fucking lot of money off of that shit. Still getting paid off that shit, you know.
Well, it's good to still have you around to tell all the stories, because you've lived a very colored life. I mean that in the sense of, holy shit, you're Rick James.
Damn right, bitch. Yeah.
What do you do now? What's in the future for Amos?
Well, what's in the future now? I am actually developing a couple of new artists, and actually today, as a matter of fact, I had a meeting with another artist. I'm developing. I take my time a little bit more now, and I'm developing artists. I got a girl her name is Vita. She's awesome, and I got this new girl that I'm not going to mention yet. I want to see what's happening. I got to talk to her after we get through with this, and it's looking like we're going to do some things. And right now, I'm just developing new artists and just getting some careers established for some young artists. That's been mainly what I do now. You know.
Are you a very social media guy at all?
Actually, I do a lot of social media marketing for developing it. I develop because now that plays an integral part in how an artist will be accepted and how they will be accepted not only in the arena with the fans, but in the arena with the executives. You know, that plays a very important part on how their brand, exposing the brand, knowing how to get a brand exposed and get it heard is very important. And for the past 5 or 6 years, I've really been getting into that and learning how to do that. I've gotten really good at it, actually.
How about Amos Larkin's advice to keep a career if you like the cocaine, like some of these rappers do right now? And they're probably going to, at some point, a light's going to light up for them, hopefully before we lose too many of them, or this lean, or any of this stuff. From a guy who's been through it all, advice you would give to these players that are coming up?
I'll tell you, man, don't even fucking make it a fucking major thing, man. It's a waste of time to do the drugs. I know it's easy for me to say I've been there and done that shit, but I'm lucky to be alive. That's number one. I'm lucky to have my brains. I'm lucky that I'm blessed to the God that allowed me to keep my talent to the point to where I'm actually still relevant to this day, you know. But let me tell you something, man. Focus on your music and try to own everything you can. Own your publishing. Own your masters. Own everything you can. Don't let anybody belittle that, man. You know, be confident in yourself and just get your business right, man. Get your business part right. And when you start, if you're so fortunate to stand out in the crowd and you get a little attention and you're able to, like, you know, use that and use it to the best of your ability. And while you're doing that, listen, man, manage your money to the point to where later on, because I guarantee you at one point, I don't care who you are, from Drake to Dre, the shit will be over. Okay, get it to the point where you can venture off into other things like very few artists do. Don't let it pass you by, and next thing you know, one day you're broke and it's too late. You can't get that shit off, man. So that's the advice. If that makes any sense to anybody, and I hope if that makes sense to one person who listened, then I've done my job. I've done my service to God and to humanity.
What do you like right now on the radio? Anything?
I love hip hop, man. Where it's going, man. I love that shit. I like Rich Homie. I love Fetty Wap, man. I mean, I like what he was doing. I like all the new stuff, man. These kids, man, are fucking doing that shit, man. They're prolonging it. And what I really like is, I like where bass came from and where it is now. I love it. I love how it's derived. You know, what it's evolved into. I just love all the new stuff, man. I love the stuff that you know, that Birdman promotes, man, and Cash Money and Lil Wayne. I love all that stuff, man. I love how Khaled's taking that shit off. DJ Khaled, I love where he's taking it, man. And it's just a great thing to see, man. I love it. I think hip hop music in itself and in its own right has evolved into some really good stuff, man. You know.
Where do people find you at socials, Amos?
Oh, man, all you gotta do is just Google Amos Larkins, man. I just started working Famous, F-A-M-O-S, Famous Official. You can get me on Famous Official. If you Google Famous Official, you'll find a lot of stuff on me, that kind of thing, you know. Amos Larkins, and I'll come up. You'll see me pop up. And that's how you catch me.
I do. I like to pay tribute to the golden era, and I appreciate you telling us about the Miami-based scene seen through the eyes of Amos Larkin.
That's it!
Holla!
Peace!
We're here, showing up, my dear. The Gucci Crew 2 MCs of the year. So listen up close as we illustrate and shake the earth with our Gucci bass. Gucci bass. My ambitions grow gargantuan, a rap gladiator. My throne, I fricassee an MC standing in my way with alterations, declarations. What else can I say? I have abundance around the chronological order. Since sucker MC straight to the border, executioner of rhyme knowledge on my side. Now to stimulate the beat and keep you petrified. Gucci bass. Gucci Bay. Gucci Bay. Gucci Bay.
This is the Old School Rewind. Share and subscribe now at oldschoolrewind.com, facebook.com/oldschoolrewind, and at oldschoolrewind.com.